I saw someone standing in my hallway. I was not imagining it. I know what I saw. It was a person, a shape, still, right there between the bedroom door and the bathroom. I stood and looked. It did not move. This was the first week in the house. I had the boxes half open and the fridge half empty. I was alone. No kids. No pets. No girlfriend. No one else had a key. I kept telling people that, and they kept nodding like they were waiting for me to trip over my own words. I don't have words to trip over. I'm telling you what happened. It was late. I had carried one more box upstairs. I came back down and flipped off the hall light. I walked to the kitchen and set a glass in the sink. I was not drunk. I was not high. I am not a sleepwalker. I went back to the hall and there it was. A person shape, not some coat on a hook. I don't own a coat like that. Not a shadow. My hall lights were on. It was against the light. It ate the light. It was just past the threshold to the bathroom. I could see the corner of the door frame cutting into it. It did not even sway. I watched it. I waited for breath. Nothing. No sound. I said, "Hey." I actually said, "Hey." I thought maybe a neighbor had slipped in. That makes no sense, but that's where my head went. "Who the hell are you?" I said it louder. I took a step. It did not move. Then the light flickered and I blinked, and it wasn't there. I didn't hear feet. I didn't hear doors. It was just not there. I checked the bathroom. Empty. I checked the bedrooms. Empty. I checked the closet. I opened each door, one after the other. I kept telling myself to breathe and stop talking out loud. I put my hand on the wall because my fingers were shaking. It was quiet. It was quiet in the way old houses get quiet. Thick walls, heavy doors, dead sound. No hum. Even the fridge seemed to hold its breath. I went to the front door. The deadbolt was turned. I know I left it unbolted. I leave the deadbolt off when I'm carrying boxes. I had been in and out all day. I would have had to lock it from the inside. I didn't. It was locked. I stood there with my hand on the lock and stared at the wood. I touched the chain on the door. I never used the chain. It hung. It wasn't hooked. That part was normal. The deadbolt was not. I told myself I was tired. Not crazy. Tired. I locked the back door. I checked the windows. I put the kitchen chair under the knob of the back door, just in case. The kind of dumb trap you do when you don't have a plan. I put the glass on the coffee table in the living room, took a photo of it in place because that kind of thing makes me feel better, and went upstairs to sleep. I did not sleep. I lay there and watched the hall light crawl under the door crack. I watched it thin out. I sat up twice and told myself not to be stupid. I got up at one point and checked the stairs. The house held still. That's the only way I can say it. It held still. In the morning, I came down and the chair was against the wall. Not fully moved. Just scooted 2 inches to the side. You can laugh. 2 inches. It mattered to me. The glass from the coffee table was on the kitchen counter. There was a ring on the wood where I had left it. My photo from last night showed it on the table. That morning it wasn't. I looked at the front door. Deadbolt turned. Again. I hadn't touched it. I had come down the stairs. You can say I forgot. Fine. But the chair did not slide itself. The floor is flat. The attic hatch had a black smudge on the edge that I didn't remember from before. I hadn't opened it yet. I was going to wait until the weekend to go up there. The smudge looked like something scraped it. Not claws. I'm not talking about claws. A scuff. Old wood rubbing against paint. That's what it looked like. I noticed dust on the hall floor. Not a lot. Just that thin grit that shows when light comes in at a low angle. There was a mark in it by the bedroom door. It looked like a print. Not a full foot. Like a part of a heel. No trail to it. No trail from it. Just that one smudge near the threshold and then clean dust around it. And no, there weren't other prints. I looked. I got down on my knees and looked like an idiot. It was just the one. By noon, I had called the neighbor. He's the guy in the yellow house on the corner with the 2 dogs that never bark. He came over with his hands in his pockets and looked at my front door and at my chair and at me. He waved at the ceiling and said these places settle. He said sometimes air pushes doors. He said he had a bat in his attic one time that left marks. He said all that and never said I was crazy, but his face said it. I called the non-emergency police line that night after I heard what I thought were 2 light taps in the hall. Like someone put 2 fingers on the drywall. It could have been anything. It could have been a pipe. But it sounded like tapping. I told the woman on the phone that I was new to the house and I thought somebody was coming in. I told her about the deadbolt. She sent 2 officers. They walked through the rooms with their hands on their belts. They checked the attic. Same black smudge around the hatch. Undisturbed dust up there. They said it probably was me locking and not remembering. They said to get cameras. The older one looked at me like he knew the drill. He told me to sleep with the door closed. He told me to call if I found damage or if I caught someone on video. He did not say it, but I heard the word in his pause. If. If you catch someone. If not, keep it to yourself. I set traps. Simple stuff. Flour and baking soda in a thin line by the inside of the doors. A chair under the knob again. I leaned a broom just inside the hall. If anyone opened it, it would fall. I went to the big store and bought 3 cheap cameras. Not the fancy ones. The kind that go to an app and light up when they see motion. I put one in the living room aimed at the front door. I put one at the bottom of the stairs aimed up the hall. I put one at the back door. I plugged in timers for the lights like I was going on a trip. I set them to go on and off while I was at work. I took pictures of the traps so I'd know. That night, nothing moved while I watched. That's the pattern I started seeing. When I watched, nothing moved. I sat in the dark at the top step and stared down the hall until my eyes hurt. It had that feel like the air was holding its breath again. I think that bothered me more than anything. The quiet. The way the doorways felt like mouths. I know how that sounds. I just mean they were dark holes and I wanted them to stay holes and not make shapes. Around 2, my phone buzzed. The app sent me an alert even though I was home. It was a motion alert from the living room camera. It had one freeze frame of the front door. The chain hung. The deadbolt was in the same position. There was nothing there. Then it pushed a second frame. It took a second to load. In the second frame, the doorway to the hall was in the shot. There was a shape in the doorway. It was like what I saw the first night. Human shape. Standing. Still. I could see the edge of my hall light, and the shape cut it. It had shoulders. It had a head. No detail. No face. No reflection. Just a block where a person would be. I sat there and stared at the little picture, and then I looked up at the real hall. Empty. The light shook again, and I cursed at it. I tapped the app to see the clip. It wasn't a clip. It was 2 frames. The app had nothing in between. The timestamps were seconds apart. It did not walk up. It was just there. I stood up and I said, "I see you." I said it normal at first. Then louder. "I see you. I live here." I held my phone with the screen at my chest like the light would do something. The doorway stayed dark and empty. My tongue stuck to my teeth. The house made one small click sound from the fridge or the stairs or something, and I flinched like a kid. Nothing came out of that doorway. Nothing stood there when I looked. But my app had the shape. 2 frames later, it had another. The angle was from the bottom of the stairs this time. The shape in the stair camera was closer to that camera than it should have been if it had just stepped once. It stood at the first landing. Still, facing up. It looked like it stood on the first threshold up, that little change of level where the step meets the hall. It was always at some kind of line. Just past. Just inside. The next day I left for an hour to avoid the feeling that I was going to jerk the cameras out of the wall like a crazy person. I turned the lights on timers and went to get coffee. I was gone 40 minutes. When I came back, the front door chain was on. I do not use the chain. I do not even think to use it. It doesn't sit right in the metal slot. It sticks. You have to line it up. I couldn't open the front door more than 2 inches, and that was it. I swore. I went around the side, through the gate, and to the back. The chair I had wedged was still under the knob. It was silly, but I eased it aside with my foot. The deadbolt on the back door was turned. From inside, I stood in the rain and laughed once without humor, and then I went to the garage. I keep a spare key hidden, so I used it on the side door and went in that way. No chain on that door. In my kitchen, a spoon laid on the floor. No idea why. Not broken. Just laid there like a line. The broom was on the floor where I left it to fall. It didn't fall from someone coming in. I had set it. It was still there. The flower by the back door had one smudge about the size of a thumbprint. Not a full foot. Not a toe. Just one pressed mark, like someone leaned in and tested it and then pulled back. Flower around it perfect. No steps to it. No steps away. I called the neighbor. He did the same pockets shrug. He said I should change the locks. I told him I had. I had changed them the day I moved in. He asked if the previous owner had a spare. I said no. I held up the chain like he could argue with a chain. He said I probably hooked it myself without thinking. I told him I am not that kind of forgetful. He nodded like people nod when they don't want to say the other thing. By the 3rd night, the lights started to stutter. I had the timers going. I had the app on my lap. I stared at the doorway again. The picture on the app would pop in and out with little stills. The figure in the stills never moved. It just appeared closer, then closer. 1 frame in the bathroom doorway. 1 frame in the hall. 1 frame half hidden by the banister. Always on the line. Door frame. Stair edge. Top step. I kept saying the same things. I see you. Get out. This isn't your place. It never answered. There were no thumps. No whispers. No scraping. Eekers. Just the silence and those low clicks the house made. My own breath. The cameras clicking for motion. I sat in the doorway of my bedroom and felt like an idiot talking to a wall. I tried sleeping somewhere else that night. I packed a bag like a normal person and went to a motel near the highway. I told myself I'd sleep, then go back in the morning with coffee and a scrap of dignity. I lay on the stiff bed and watched the curtains glow from the parking lot lights, and I thought about my own hallway. If you want to know why I went back at 3 a.m., it's because the app sent me a picture again. The stair camera had a new still. The figure stood at the top of the stairs, to the left of the hall. That is where my bedroom door sits. The app put a dot on the time. 2:51. I was looking at my door. I was not there. You can say it was a bug. You can say it glitched. Fine. Explain the next still. 2:53. The figure stood in the doorway to my bedroom. I stared so hard I gave myself a headache. On the edge of the picture I could see my bed. You know that feeling when your chest gets empty? I got in my car and drove back. I was angry. I don't care if that sounds dumb. I was mad for being pushed around by a thing that never even breathed. It was starting to rain. It felt like the air had been waiting to do it. The streetlights made little cones in the wet. I parked crooked. I ran up and forgot to check the chain and smacked the door into it. The chain was on. I put my face into the 2-inch gap and I could smell my own house smell, that mix of cardboard and dust and paint. I stood there in the rain, soaked, working the chain with 2 fingers like a burglar. I wiggled it up and out, and it finally slid. I pushed the door open a foot, and then the wind took it and slammed it into the wall. I said an ugly word and shut it. The power flickered as I hit the stairs. The timer lights ticked off, then on, then off. Thunder rolled, and the window panes shook. I took the stairs 2 at a time and then stopped at the top because I didn't have a plan for what to do if something was actually standing there. I held my phone like it was a weapon. The app showed a blank gray battery symbol and I hated myself for not charging it. Lightning went through the hall from the bedroom window. It filled the air for a second and I saw it. The figure stood just past the bedroom door threshold, inside my room by a foot, perfectly still. Straight, no tilt, no slouch. A person shape made out of night. It was a clean thing, not fuzzy. I saw the edge of my dresser behind it, the corner of the bed, the open closet door. The light went, and it was dark again. I held my breath without meaning to. I don't do dramatics. That's just what I did. I stared at the doorway, and the air felt heavy. I felt the weight of the threshold like it was a line that mattered. "Move," I said. "Move so I know you're not just a piece of my head." The house gave nothing back. The rain hit harder. A second flash lit the room and the hall in sharp white. It stood in the same place. Perfect. My brain reached for things like, is that a jacket stand? Is that my own shadow? The shape was not mine. I was in the hall. My shadow would have been on the opposite wall, not there. It did not move. I took 2 steps and then stopped with my toes just to the line where the hall floor met the bedroom floor. It sounds dumb to say, but that line felt like it meant something. I put my foot over it and set it down in the room. Nothing moved. The power died. Not flickered, died. The lights went out and a deep blank hit the hole upstairs. I heard the faint sound that means every appliance just quit. The kind that goes into your bones because it's the absence of something you didn't know you were hearing. I swung the phone up and the screen lit a small blue light, and then the battery icon went red and it shut down. Timing, right? Lights die at the worst moment. People say that. It did. I was not going to stand in a dark hall 6 feet from a thing I had seen in lightning and do nothing. That is not me. I put my hand out and slid it along the doorframe. It was solid and rough. I felt the old paint. I moved into my room. I did not see it, but I felt the space it took. That's all I can say. The air was colder near the door. Not a draft. Not a sea. Power was out. The cold wanted my skin. I set my shoulder to where it had stood when the lightning hit. I told myself it was the corner of the dresser I was pushing into so that I would keep moving. I stepped forward and my leg hit the bed frame. I was off by a foot. I have lived there 6 days and I already knew my bed was not where my brain said it was when I put the bed together. So that's not what I hit. I pushed anyway. Something resisted a little, like pressing into a person in a dark theater when you try to slide past. It gave when I leaned, but it did not step back and it did not make a sound. There was no breathing. There was nothing. I squeezed past and the door frame caught my ribs. The doorknob tore my shirt and the plate where the latch catches gouged my arm. It burned. I said it didn't matter, and then I hit the side of the dresser hard with my hip and made an ugly sound. I kept my hand on the wall and moved along it. I had the plan to get to the stairs, then the front door, then the street. That's all my head had. Move. Get out. Touch the next thing. Cross the next line. I kept my shoulder on the wall and I walked. I felt the top stair and took it in the second, and then my heel slid on my own floor because of rain or sweat or panic, and I went down on my ass. I banged my elbow, and for a second my hand went numb. I stood up halfway and bumped the wall, and then I forced myself to slow down because I was going to break my neck if I didn't. I held the banister and took the stairs. I did not look back. I did not give it the chance to be there in a place where the line was the top step. I knew it would be there if I looked. I don't mean like magic. I mean like that's where it liked to be. On lines. I am not explaining it right. I knew it in my gut. Downstairs I moved by muscle memory from 2 days of living there. I put my hand to the front door and hit the deadbolt and turned it. The chain wasn't hooked. Thank God. I pulled the door and it stuck, and then opened out into the wet night. I went outside in bare feet and blood ran down my forearm where the latch got me. It felt hot in the rain. I ran to the neighbor's porch and banged on the door. He came to the window with his face scrunched and his wife behind him in a robe. I yelled through the glass that I needed them to call because my phone was dead and someone was in my house. He looked over my shoulder into the dark. He went to the door and opened it, and I stood in their entry, dripping on their mat, and I felt stupid for 2 seconds, and then I started shaking. Not on purpose. It just happened. The police came again. 2 different officers. One of them had the same look as before, like he'd been to this movie. They went in with their flashlights, one hand on the light and the other loose. They went room to room and came back and said nobody was in my house. The older one said it looked like the wind did the slam. He said the chain can swing up and catch sometimes when a door hits it. I said that's not how chains work. He said sometimes they bounce and set. I told him about the attic hatch scuff. He said the painters probably left it. I told him about the powder mark. He said mice will do that. I held up the cut on my arm. He said I probably did it on the door hardware in the dark. He was not wrong about that part. I did. But that's not what I was trying to show him. I showed him the frames on the app. We charged my phone in the neighbor's kitchen while the officers drank coffee from mugs with a snowman on them. When the app loaded, the stills were there. Hall, doorway, stair, bedroom, still. The younger one looked at them and said he had the same brand, and they glitch sometimes. They freeze when the signal goes, and the timestamp can be off by seconds. I asked him to explain how a glitch makes out a person's shape and then makes it closer without any blur in between. He shrugged with his eyebrows. He was polite. They printed a case number on a scrap of paper. They said call if I found anything broken or if I saw someone. That word again. If. I went back in when my neighbor's wife made me take a towel. I took it like a kid. I don't sleep in that house anymore. Not then. Not after that night. I called out of work and packed what I could in an hour. I called a guy from Craigslist who said he could move the heavy stuff for cash the next day. He showed up in a beater truck with a dolly. He was late. He looked at my cut and said, "Huh, like that. We got the mattress out. We got the dresser. We got the couch." He asked if I needed the attic empty. I told him not to touch the attic. I signed my name on a receipt. He left. I slept in a cheap hotel for a week while I found a new place. The landlord let me break the lease. Don't ask me why. When I told him the truth, it came out bad. The word I used was intruder, and his face changed like it always does when people hear me talk about someone who never moved. Before I left the old place for the last time, I took one more walk through. Broad daylight. I said out loud, "I'm done. I am not the idiot in the movie. I'm not giving you something to prove." I said it knowing how it sounded. I wanted to say it anyway because saying it made me feel like I was doing something. I looked at the thresholds. I looked at the scuff on the attic hatch. I looked at the flour I had not swept from the back door corner. It was smeared once across, like someone wiped it with a flat hand. No steps. No toe lines. One sweep. If mice do that, then mice have weird hands. Go ahead and laugh. It was just that one wide mark. I left it there. I shut the door. I locked it. I turned in the keys to the rental office, and I signed the paper, and I got in my car with my boxes and the stuff I hadn't unpacked in the first place. I moved across town. Smaller place. Ground floor. Fewer doors. I told myself that made sense. I put the bed where I could see the only bedroom door. I did not put a chair under it. I did not pour flour. I did not buy cameras. I told myself I would not feed it. I say it like it was a thing you can feed. I know. I told myself I'd get a night's sleep and wake up in a place where the hall did not press in on me. It was late when I sat down in the new place on a half-built couch and a box for a table. The new kitchen smelled like paint, too. New places all smell the same. I plugged in my phone. It had barely any battery left at that point from the last few days of me leaving it on the app all night and not charging it. It lit up and fed me the little tones for messages that built up. My mom asking if I had settled in. My work asking if I was coming back. The neighbor guy asking if I wanted the rest of my mail. I thumbed through. The app had a blank space where the old devices were offline. I deleted them. It felt good. It felt like cleaning. Then I saw the last row of photos on my phone. You know how it makes you those little smart albums? It had one for recent. The top left had a new picture I didn't take. At first I thought it was one of the camera frames, but it wasn't the app. It was in my main photos. It was my bedroom in the old house. The angle was from the doorway. You could see the frame edge and the top of the door, the one I scraped my arm on. The shot pointed at the bed. Me. I was asleep on my side, with my mouth open a little. I looked stupid and normal, like everyone does when they're asleep and don't know you're looking. The covers were halfway off my legs. The timestamp said 3:12 a.m., 2 nights before the storm. I didn't take it. I can swear on anything you want. I didn't. No one else did. No one else had my phone. I didn't put any of that on a cloud where a hacker could mess with it. It was on my phone. It hadn't been there when the cops looked. It was there now. I set the phone down and wiped my hands on my jeans. They were clean. It felt like I had grease on them. I picked up the phone again and looked at the picture and at the door in it, and I realized I could see the corner of the mirror on my dresser in the old place tilted toward the door. I zoomed in and tried to tell myself it was a trick. It had that effect you get when you zoom too far and it pixelates, but you could still make out a piece of the hull and a black line in the door crack. A line like a shoulder in the corner. I know what I saw. I didn't show that picture to anybody. I did not want to tell that story to anyone who could answer me. You can say I did it. That I set a timer or a remote, or I staged it and forgot. Go ahead. I moved anyway. I was already out. The second night in the new place, I kept the bathroom light on with the door half shut. I turned the new deadbolt 3 times, even though I knew once was enough. I drank from a glass and put it on the counter and stood there and told myself, see, no clicks, no nothing. My shoulder ached where the door got me. I pulled the shirt collar down and looked at the scab in the mirror. It looked like a bad scratch. Not a big deal. It itched like I wanted to dig it. I didn't. I closed the bathroom and went to bed. I woke up at 2:40 from nothing. Not a sound. Not a dream I could hold on to. I lay there looking at the one door in the room. The bathroom door was closed. The hall door was half open, like I left it. Light from the living room clock made a little red line on the floor. I stared at the crack between the door and the frame. I told myself to cut it out. I told myself this was where it ends because I moved, and moving changes things. That's what people do when they want their lives to stop feeling like a trick. They move. I started to get mad that I was lying there. I hate myself when I get that mad. It makes me talk too fast and say the wrong thing. It started again, the wanting to say something to it like I had in the old place. I didn't say anything. I just watched the door crack. Nothing moved. That's the stupid thing. Nothing moved. That line of dark kept being a line of dark. I watched it for long enough that my eyes watered. Then the little hall light I had on a cheap plug timer clicked and went out like it wanted to make a point. It picked that second. Of course it did. The room went soft. I sat up. I held the sheet like it mattered. I stared at the door frame. I saw it then. A slice of black that wasn't the door. A piece of less than light where the crack should have been empty. Straight. Still. A shoulder in the crack. It did not move. It did what it always does. Stood there on the line and waited for me to be the one who moved. I will not argue with you about what I saw. I don't need to debate it. I stood and crossed the room and never took my eyes off that slice, because I know what happens when you look away. I put my hand on the knob and I pulled the door open fast because I wanted to catch it wrong. I wanted to see it in the middle of a step. The door swung. The hall was empty and quiet, and the timer light stayed dead. I don't have a wrap-up for you. I have a picture on my phone of me sleeping that I didn't take, and a fresh door with a crack that had a shoulder in it. You can laugh. You can tell me about glitches and stress and the way eyes look for faces in noise. It's always standing in doorways. It's always just past a line. It never moves when I look at it. I can feel where it takes up space when the light goes. I can still push past it and leave. That's what I did. I went through that doorway hard and fast, and it scraped my knuckles on the frame, and I went into my own hall and turned on every light and watched nothing move until the sun came up. I'm not crazy. I am angry. There's a difference. And when you go to bed tonight, leave your door open or shut it. I don't care. Just pick one. Don't leave a crack. That's all I'm saying. Every story has a price. For this one, it's simple. A like and a subscribe. That's how we keep the ritual going. Miss a step, and the next upload might not find you. See you in the next one.